Bismillah. He is the benevolent, the giving and merciful. He's so indescribable. His love is irreversible, word undeniable, lyrically untriable, ultimately viable, eternally supplyable, maybe inconceivable, but beautifully believable. The true reality, there's no similarity. Gave us more than charity, peace and prosperity. Why did we never care to see it? We can keep His clarity. The Almighty, the Father metaphorically, but in the history they tried to make His word a mystery. Gave him mortality, anthropomorphic fallacy. Say He's got a seed, they can never bring the proof to me. And honestly, the greatest, the best, beyond time and space, beyond matter and flesh. Yes, He's uncomparable, yet His parables infinitely listed pictures couldn't give a good description. The pictures missing, but He created all the living in every dimension, and He inspired what I'm giving, the giver of wisdom, devoid of any needs. Anything that He wants, all He has to say is be, cause He's the untouchable, infinitely trustable, His plan unstoppable, power untoppable, the reliable, undeniable, greater than the physical, master of the mystical, the master of the worlds, the fashioner of seas.
Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak.
Wa alaikum salam and Ramadan Kareem.
Praises be to Allah. Let us pray. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Say, I seek refuge in Allah against the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, Master of the day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and Thee alone do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path You bestowed Your favors upon, and not the path You brought Your wrath down upon, nor those who've gone astray after hearing Thy teachings. Ameen.
Ameen. Allahu Akbar.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
So today, we welcome you to season 2 of the 99 attributes of Allah, in which we're on day what? 7. Where we take 3 to 4 attributes per day and go into their meaning and their usage in the environment.
You know, brothers and sisters, Allah says in the Holy Quran, Allah, there is no God except He. To Him are the most beautiful names.
And believers, these beautiful names are the 99 attributes of Allah found in Islam.
The 99 characteristics of Allah, God, reflect the noblest of qualities and abilities. They represent the perfect ideal for human beings to inspire to.
Praise be to Allah.
That's a fact.
Islamic tradition says, derive your manners from the attributes of Allah. Therefore, our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is reported to have said, cultivate within yourselves the attributes of Allah.
And our beloved minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, stated or tweeted to us, when you have an attribute of God, you should strive for degrees of excellence in that attribute. And I want to lift another Twitter saying by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And this is so beautiful because it deals with what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in 2014 on the Ramadan prayer line, what the month of Ramadan is all about. And he gave us 3 things. He said discipline. He said preparation and cleansing. And this Twitter saying by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about that discipline. It was asked of him, why is there trouble figuring out exactly what duty to God is? Now watch his answer, Sister Sadia Kareem. Watch his answer. That duty is found studying His attributes. And once you know those attributes, you will see He is sufficient for all that we need. Praise be to Allah. Now, you know this is a man that is backed by God. God is all up in him, revealing to him, showing him, because everything that we're reading is just so perfect for the times, you know? And so that's so beautiful. And so we have a clip we want to show today.
That's right. And it's from the time and
what must be done.
That's right. Part 54.
As we have been sharing with you in these broadcasts of the time and what must be done, the representation of the great Mahdi, or long looked for guide of the Muslim world, Master Farad Muhammad, who is the master of the wheel,
That's right.
and the great Jesus, the Christ. The Christ and the Mahdi are one and the same. For Christ means one anointed with power to crush the wicked. And the Mahdi is one also anointed to set justice in the earth and to set down every tyrant. And we are saying that in our humble judgment, he, the Mahdi, the Christ, is so magnificent. There has never been a manifestation of God like him. And when the Quran says in the 112th surah or chapter, and there is none like him, never has there been one like him who is the master of that great mother plane or wheel. He is the manifestation of all of the 99 attributes of Allah plus a few more, as Allah is always coupling his attributes in this manner. He's mighty, but he's wise. He's strong and powerful, but he's the forgiving and the merciful. He is the avenger and the destroyer, but his power is always balanced with his oft returning to mercy and his forgiveness. He's always balanced. We would have to do something so terrible that would allow him to unleash the fullness of the power that he has.
Praise be to Allah. He's the manifestation of all 99 plus a few more.
That's right.
Praises be to Allah. Praises be to Allah. So, brothers and sisters, each day we want to keep coming and keep coming and keep showing and keep expressing the very importance and the value and the depth of these attributes, and just keep giving them, because it's so important that we learn these attributes, because at the essence of them, we're learning ourselves.
Yes.
And that's so beautiful about it. So today, who do we have with us, Sister Sadia?
We have a beautiful sister, one of our youth. She's a vanguard, so she's at the forefront. And that is none other than our beautiful sister Qadira from Oklahoma City Study Group, right, in Oklahoma. And this beautiful sister right here, I'm just going to give a little bit of her bio. So at the age of 14, she was one of the youngest persons at that time to be a certified auditor. And the minister put us on that path to become an auditor. And then she's in the student ministry class. And then when she was in college, she took up the degree of political science, which is my degree.
Which is mine too.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, all right.
So we may have a lawyer on our hand. But she was a student leader, and her job was to bring the different faiths together in her interfaith organization. She's also a representative for the youth for the United Nations on several capacities. So this sister, her reach is far and wide, and it's global. And she has something mighty to say to us today. So the floor is yours, Sister Qadira. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak.
Wa alaikum salam, Ramadan Kareem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet everyone again in the greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak.
Wa alaikum salam and Ramadan Kareem.
So can the tech team pull up the slides real quick? We're going to start off with it. So today, I'll be talking about 3 attributes, just to give everyone a preview. I'll be talking about Al-Qahar, Al-Bar, and Al-Majid. Next slide. So starting with Al-Qahar, Al-Qahar it has several meanings. This is really deep. And I would just want to take a moment to say that when we talk about the 99 attributes, the English cannot fully grasp the depth of his attributes in the original Arabic. So that's why the definitions are a little long, but it's important to get a fuller meaning. So Al-Qahar is the all-dominant, the supreme, the master, the subduer, the ever-dominating. And I thought it was also important to highlight the roots, which is of Al-Qahar, which is connected to this attribute, which is Ka, Ha, and Ra. And the root of it is to oppress, compel against one's wishes, subdue, overcome, become superior in power or force, overbear, get mastery over, constrain, treat harshly, and thwart. Next slide, please. Now, this attribute actually exemplifies Allah's complete and total control over all. And in the Quran, it especially shows time and time again how he has mastery over every situation. So I want to pull from Surah 13, verse 16, where it says, "Say, who is the Lord of the heavens and the earth? Say, Allah. Say, do you then take besides him guardians who control no benefit or harm even for themselves? Say, are the blind and the seeing alike? Or are the darkness and light equal? Or have they set up with Allah associates who have created creation like his, so that what is created becomes confused to them? Say, Allah is the creator of all things, and he is the supreme, the one." And there are a couple parts of this ayah that really stuck out to me in conjunction to this specific attribute, which is, do you then take besides him guardians who control no benefit or harm even for themselves, showing Allah's total power over everything and everyone. And also say Allah is the creator of all things, and he is the one, the supreme, which actually highlights that specific attribute in the original Arabic. Next slide, please. Furthermore, the Quran continues to explain, when I mean every situation, I mean literally every situation. Pay attention to this. It says in Surah 40, ayat 14 through 16, "So call upon Allah, being sincere to him in obedience, though the disbelievers are averse. Exalter of degrees, Lord of the throne of power, he makes the spirit to light by his command upon whom he pleases of his servants, that he may warn men of the day of meeting, the day when they come forth. Nothing concerning them remains hidden from Allah, to whom belongs the kingdom of this day. To Allah, the one, the subduer of all." And so in this specific verse, he's showing us, when he says nothing concerning them remains hidden from Allah, meaning Allah knows the totality of the thinking of the enemy as well. And so now one thing that it says here is he's the subduer. So I wanted to parse that word. Let's get a little bit clarity and meaning in English with what a subduer is. A subduer is a conqueror, one who overcomes or defeats. Now, this attribute is really serious. And when we talk about that, we're talking about having control over something, back into one of the parts of Al-Qahar. And I want to also clear control. Control is the power to influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events. And so it's very interesting because we might say, whoa, this is a really strong attribute. Like, we're talking about subduing and controlling and kind of crushing and constraining. So like, why, like, we have to ask, why does Allah hold this attribute? Well, I'm going to take it, there's a few angles you can take it from, and I want to take it from this one, in which I'm so glad that we listened to the minister, because it ties directly into this attribute. When the minister said about the definition of Christ is one anointed to crush the wicked. That is al-Qahar.
Right.
So would you not want victory over your enemies? Would you not want to have control, complete and total control of that situation to overcome and overpower them? So the most important thing we could ask when we're talking about trying to understand why Allah has this attribute is to define who is Allah's enemy. And if we are believers, then we know whoever Allah's enemy is our enemy too.
Right.
So, and I'm not just talking about that person, your boss, who like they might be really mean. They might be giving you all kinds of hell, excuse me. But that's not what I mean when I'm talking about the enemy. What I'm talking about are forces that are keeping us away from our deen, from the straight path. Back to the slides, please. And as we know, the definition of that person is Satan, shaitan. So the most honorable the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the War of Armageddon has begun during that Savior's Day message this past year. And I quote, Satan has to be exposed. Satan is no spook. Satan is no spirit. Satan are men and women, highly intelligent, knowing the truth and using their knowledge of good to trick people who are good into doing that which is evil, and then make them think the evil that they do is all right. So when we talk about Satan, we're talking about someone who knows the truth and is intentionally leading us astray off of our straight path. So we must be on our deen to be able to crush that, to really hurl truth at falsehood, so that until it knocks out its brains. And even more with that, the Honorable Minister the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, back to the slides, please. He told us that I will have you so smart that you will have the devil around your finger as a little string, and you will not even know he is there unless you look at him. So in essence, he's telling us that we can subdue the devil. A promise that he can have, a promise that he has given us, that he can tell us, he has given us how to gain control over the devil to the point that we won't even acknowledge the devil's existence. Only until we want to.
That's right.
So it means having so much control that the devil does not disturb us. The devil does not mess us up, mess up our groove, and more importantly, take us off that straight path to the oneness with Allah. Now the question comes, what are the ways that we become smart to be able to overcome the enemy, Satan, the devil, so that we become crushers of our enemies? Well, there's a couple angles we can look at this. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to go with one in particular. When we talk about the definition of, when we talk about the shaitan, there's the shaitan of self. That's the first and most important enemy that we have to crush.
Right.
So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, in Closing the Gap, was God Satan at first? I will go to that slide in a second. Was God Satan at first and then becomes God? The Quran says that the jinn came before the man. In my humble opinion, the ministers, it means that this fiery spirit and temperament is seen in the infancy of development, where one must learn to control the emotions in order for the rational mind of a man to come forth. So one way we subdue the enemy of self is to rise above emotion into the thinking of God. Now I need that slide. The improper handling of emotion does not allow us to grow beyond self. It makes our reasoning subjective and clouds our judgment of individuals, circumstances, and events. Our great test today will be whether we can rise above emotion to begin to think and act more like Allah, God. So we overcome our enemies by rising above emotion, like I just said. And how we get through that process is that we really have to do what Allah has already instructed us to do. If He knows the enemy of self, then He knows how to totally crush it. Then when we go on our deen, when He tells us what we need to do by living the restrictive laws, by rising above emotions, by fasting like we're doing during the month of Ramadan, by giving charity like that we're asked to, when we do our 5 pillars, whenever we submit what Allah has for us to do, in essence, we are starting that crushing of that inner shaitan. So by knowing that Allah has total control and knowledge over all circumstances and our enemies, even the difficult ones in our lives, I don't know about you, but I'm reassured. Because to have complete control means you have a knowledge of that thing. And so when we have things like self-analysis, then we can become really truthful and know what the circumstances really are in the first place. And that's the key. Because if we're dealing in truth, because Allah deals in truth, then we must deal in truth too. And that's where self-analysis starts. Because if we have a colored perception of the situation, we won't be able to solve our problems. And I need that slide. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says that emotion is intensified feeling. It can become so strong and overpowering that it masters the mind or judgments, which means then we have lost total control over that circumstance. So we need to use the appropriate tools to correct and heal those parts of ourselves that have that colored judgment, that have that colored perception. That starts with self-analysis. And personally, when I took self-analysis seriously, I realized that sometimes when my tainted perception meant that I might have been the person doing the wrong in that moment. And so when I acknowledged that, then I could identify that shaitanic thinking within myself and see and be honest. And that's not easy. That is not easy sometimes because a lot of times we think that being like us doing something bad means we're a bad person. And that is not the case. And when we're able to separate the two and realize that we were made imperfect and that we have that tool of self-analysis and self-correction to be able to look at that thing that we have, that and be able to identify and take it out of us, that is way more empowering than ignoring and pretending it doesn't exist. Because then it has control over you and not you over it. So that is the first attribute. Now, praise be to Allah. So now going on to the next attribute is al-bar. And the meaning of al-bar is the source of goodness, the kind benefactor, benign. And I had to identify benign because that was deep. Benign is pleasant and kind, gentle, having no harmful influence or effects. And the roots of bar is bara, which is to be pious, just, virtuous, act justly, be truthful, beneficence, bestow bountiful gifts, show kindness, keep an oath, act well, be true, behave courteously, and deal benevolently. Now, what I saw here is that this is really the idea of being good, of goodness itself. And it also, in this attribute, with its root, shows us where goodness actually originates from, the source of it. So we'll get more into that, because it's not just good on what we might understand as like good versus evil. It's also, there's also parts of goodness like reward, the root of happiness, and just really giving and being kind out of the love in your own heart is goodness. So next slide. Now, goodness, what I'm really trying to say is that it goes much more deeply than we understand in the West and in many Western philosophies. For example, the Quran shows here that goodness is tied to justice. In Surah 60, Ayah 8, Allah forbids you not respecting those who fight you not for religion, nor drive you forth from your homes, that you show them kindness and deal with them justly. Surely Allah loves the doers of justice. Now, with this revelation, just to get a little context, at the time this revelation came, there were non-Muslims who were trying to go to war and drive out the believers. And so Allah made a clear distinction that to not, first of all, do not become in friendly relations with those who are openly hostile toward us, the Muslims, but also to keep in mind that there are other people who are not treating us that way, and to be just with them, deal justly with them. Showing that just because, and effectively Maulana Muhammad Ali said in his commentary, and I'm paraphrasing, but effectively showed that just because you don't share a faith with someone, if they treat us right, it is just and good to treat them back with kindness. And there is also this aspect of this attribute that also ties to the idea of obedience and righteousness. So when we talk about al-bar, we have to understand that it doesn't go with the idea like, oh, do good for goodness sake. Because there is a root to doing goodness, and it is outlined in the Holy Quran. In Surah 2, Ayat 177, it is not righteousness that you turn your faces toward the east and the west, but righteous is the one who believes in Allah and the last day, and the angels and the book and the prophets, and gives away wealth out of love for him to the near of kin and the orphans and the needy and the wayfarer, and to those who ask, and to set slaves free, and keeps up prayer and pays the poor rate, and the performers of their promise when they make a promise, and the patient in distress and affliction, and in the time of conflict. These are they who are truthful, and these are they who keep their duty. This is one of my favorite verses in the Quran, because what it's saying is that Allah doesn't see necessarily what you do, but he sees your intention. And that is more important than just submitting for submitting's sake. We have to have our hearts in what we are doing. And so when we do good, and we are to do good for it to be pleasing of Allah, it should not come out of any other place but to please him. And so this attribute highlights how we're striving toward the attribute of goodness and how it becomes personal. And it should actually relieve us of a lot of stress that might be coming with submitting to something, because we're not looking at outside pressures like society or people to do good, to do what we're supposed to do. What we're doing is we are really just looking, is this pleasing to Allah? And so, like, for example, even like giving charity, we talk about giving charity out of our hearts, however much or little we're able to give, as long as we're able to give from the purpose of charity out of our hearts, that is well pleasing to Allah, not to be seen of other people, not to be like, oh, my secretary is going to judge me because, they can see, oh, my secretary is going to judge me because I only gave X amount of money this week. No, that's not who you should be concerned with, not anyone else, but how does Allah feel about what you do? And because you have that relationship with him. So because Allah is not looking at how much or how little we do for the sake of others because of how we think about it, but really how we are doing it in relationship with him, this is really our journey, our personal journey with him. And so going back to the slide, pull that up, please. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the restrictive law of Islam is our success. I would hope that the members of the Nation of Islam will go after our people. I don't care about quote unquote numbers. It is not about numbers. It's what we do in the name of Allah. So when we realize that if we place our hearts toward Allah for our duty, it can actually transform our lives. This attribute is transformative because when we see that we are to do good for the sake of Allah and in obedience to him and him alone, not anyone or anything else, we can actually grow more deeply into our duties. And we can, because first of all, we're taking ourselves for where we are truly at, not because you're trying to put up some front or anything. And then we can know we can do our best and strive our hardest from where we are at now and know where we can honestly grow and continue to get better in until we reach stage after stage into our eventual perfection. So this is not a race between me and so, you and brother X and brother Y. This is our own journeys toward attaining goodness and righteousness. And I found that this attribute is not only has really been the best for me in my personal journey, but I also have found that looking at this attribute from that perspective has helped me to reach people more in Islam, because it reminds me to be being true to myself. And pull up the slide, please. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the restrictive law of Islam again, that if as a sister, you would just strive to be yourself, that's enough of the uphill road. And in some of the mosques and study groups, the FOI take the sisters out in the street fishing with you. And they are anxious to help in every way they can. But sisters, what does your house look like? What does your apartment look like? Are you being a good MGT starting at home? See, that is the uphill road. And believe me, if you become that, you'll free a slave. You'll help a poor man lying in the dust just by being your beautiful self. So I have found, because of the spaces that I'm in, I'm often in a lot of spaces where a lot of people don't have the same worldview as me. And it's not just being Muslim, just like completely all different types of worldviews, faiths, religions, political ideologies, backgrounds. And I found that by being my authentic self in that space, by being in submission to where I am, that is the highest attracting power to Islam. So I could go on, but because of the sake of time, I'm going to go to the next one. But I have a lot of personal examples of how just being who I am has helped to transform people's lives. And I'm like, just by existing, I mean, by the grace of Allah. So let's go to the next slide. Al-Majid, the last attribute I'll speak about today. It means the glorious, the great, the illustrious, the eminent, the magnificent. And I had to break down the meaning of these. Glorious is delightful, wonderful, completely enjoyable. Illustrious is well-known, respected, and admired for past achievements. Eminent is high in station, rank, or reputation, and magnificent is very impressive and beautiful, good, or skillful. In other words, Allah is the epitome of the manifestation. of civilization, morality, and he is of the highest reputation. So highlighting the word illustrious specifically, where he is well-known, respected, and admired for his past achievements. That is the type of God we serve. Like, think about that. Someone who's well-known, respected, and admired for his achievements, who has shown us, and what I mean, he has shown us time and time again that he can, he has, and he will. Kun fayakun. With his highest expression of virtue, Allah is not a liar. In fact, he cannot lie. And he has shown us through his greatest achievement that he has destroyed impossibility. So I would like to show the video, please, where the minister expounds on what I just said.
Elijah Muhammad had that call. He said, Allah destroyed the impossible when he created the heavens and the earth from nothing. So when Allah created the heavens and the earth from nothing, and then takes human beings and creates us from a tiny life germ, which is minuscule and microscopic, but yet he creates you and me from that, and then allows us to grow into knowledge to become masters. This is a proof that there is nothing impossible. All we have to do is see it, believe that you can achieve it, then don't go to sleep. Get up and go to work.
Thank you. So when we are at knowing what we just know about Allah and what he has been able to achieve by destroying the impossible, when we are asked to submit to him, would we not want to submit to someone who has done that? Who has these qualities of showing that he can and he has? And how he can do it to the highest standard? His reputation is immaculate. I know I'm saying all different kinds of ways, but I'm just trying to get us to really see that it is so important that we submit to him. And so thank you for pulling the slide up. You can pull it back up again. The Holy Quran says that in Surah 85, ayat 15 through 16, Allah is the Lord of the throne of power, the glorious, doer of what he intends. Now, it was mentioned earlier that we can cultivate within ourselves the attributes of Allah. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, has said that. So we can become the glorious or glorious and doer of what we intend. And with that attribute, that means that basically we can manifest anything in our lives. But that starts first by tapping into our mind. And that starts with actually keeping our word. And the reason I say that is, how would Allah look keeping a promise to us as he has through scripture and through signs in our personal lives, but he never intended to keep it? Wouldn't that damage his reputation? It doesn't make sense. So what does that look like when we do that? When we say something and we don't keep our word, when we say our word is bond and bond is life, and I'll give my life before my words shall fail. But even more deeply, it eats away at our power of manifestation by making our intentions towards something that we never had in mind to do in the first place. Because our thoughts are not aligning up with our actions. But we can actually increase the attractive power of our thoughts in the atmosphere when we align ourselves with truth Again, truth within our mind, manifesting into reality and into the universe, and lining the truth of the universe with the truth in our minds. That increases our manifestation power. And at the same time, we have to clear our minds to become vessels of which Allah can tell us when it is time or not time to do things. That comes with the submission aspect as well. So when we keep our word and we make it bond, we can also be in true, and then we are in tune with our true desires. We're able to line up our minds with Allah's. So I will close with this, that there are many layers to this attribute. Another part of this attribute is his eminence and his magnificence. And so I just wanted to close out with this, that Allah can elevate us to magnificence in any environment and in every space we enter. We literally can make heads turn. I bet we have already done that.
Right.
But even just putting on our headpiece, I'll say from my experience for MGT, when we put on our headpiece, we literally make heads turn just by existing in a space, because we submitted to something Allah had told us to do that raised us and elevated us. So we can do that though by not even trying, if we submit our will to do the will of Allah. Going to the next slide, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says that which really makes man superior is our duty to God. And the Holy Quran says, surely the noblest of you with Allah is the most dutiful of you. So when I say that we can make heads turn, that we can be elevated, it's not out of a place of ego. It's out of a place of submitting ourselves. Allah will uplift us the more that we submit our will to do his will. And with that being said, I am finished, so I will leave you as it came before you in the greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam, dear sister. Praises be to Allah. Thank you. You know, I want to look at Sister Sadir and Sister Qadira. You know, when you look at the word al-Qahar, you know, it's used 6 times in the Holy Quran, and is all 6 times is coupled with wahid, al-wahid, right? One time it's coupled wahadu, meaning and he is, and then the other time in one ayat it's like Allah is the possessor. It says lillahi, and to Allah, right? The one, right? The subduer, right? So what I found, so brothers and sisters, after we had this conversation a few days ago, remember at the end of some of the verses, there are indefinite attributes and there are definite attributes, meaning a and the. And when it's a, that means we as individuals have the ability to use that attribute and work out the things that we need to work out and desire to work out. When it's a definite article, that's something different. That's Allah. And you find al-Qahar mentioned only in the indefinite, the 6 times in the Quran. So, and it's the intensive form. So when Allah is using that word, it's intense. It's serious, right? And so, and remember, brothers and sisters, that the second attribute, when you find these attributes connected together, the second one tells you something about the first one. Because remember, our brother said in al-Wahid, it means there has to be 1, then there's a 2, then there's a 3, then there's a 4. Right. So this one who's showing us the intensity of subduing something, and he's the supreme at this. Man, this is so profound. Thank you, Sister Qadira, for just bringing that up and pointing that out and giving us that homework, giving us that information and insight. And then I say homework because we're going to go home and do some studying.
Exactly.
Right. So I told you, every time you come to the 99 and the 1, bring your Holy Quran, bring your Our Savior Has Arrived, bring your study guides, right? Bring your How to Eat to Live, bring your Message to the Black Man, bring your books, because we're going to go into it. So Sister Qadira, so what connection did you see, or did you see a connection between these 3 attributes?
Yes, because I was it was difficult not to almost repeat the same points throughout the whole thing. I guess I could have done it from that angle too. But I wanted to give each of them their own time. And I definitely saw a connection, I think, between especially Al-Kahar and Al-Bar. Well, actually all of them, because first of all, my conclusion for all of it is submit. We have to submit to do the will of Allah. But the other thing is with Al-Kahar being the crusher, and then there's Al-Bar, which is the benign, the source of goodness. It's almost, I don't want to say like two sides of the same coin, but it's like you're crushing your enemy by doing your own work. You are like, let me start with this. When you do Al-Bar, which is doing goodness and submitting your will to do the will of Allah, you are essentially crushing your enemy at the same time. And so they parallel with each other. So yes, I definitely did see a connection.
Excellent. Praise be to Allah.
So, and as you were talking about that, and you said it earlier, as your favorite ayat, one of your favorite ayats about keeping your duties, not whether you turn east or west, but it's about the things that you do to keep your duty action, right? In order to attain these attributes, then there's work that must be done. So I want to hear personally your testimony of how you implemented these attributes in your life, where not only were you Allah blessed you, but you were a blessing to someone else as you manifested these attributes.
Excellent.
Okay, yes, ma'am. As I said earlier, I was trying not to go too deep into it, but you asked. So I guess I will share. So when I was at my university, that was a time where I was really challenging myself to do certain things better. Like before, when I was in high school, I was covering my hair, for example, but I was just like caps and stuff. I had a fear of even just putting on the like the chiffon. And so I went to college and I challenged myself I will start with covering with my chiffon, and I'm going to do it every day while I'm at school. I'm going to cover properly. And that's just to give you context of like what I was striving to do. And during my time on my campus, I got very involved in my interfaith program called Quests. And I used the teaching, like we would have discussions a lot. Like that was a big part of Quest. We're having interfaith discussions, Muslim, Christian, Wiccan, in the same space. Yeah. Having different atheists, like all in the same space having these discussions. And during my first night of Quest, the first time when I wasn't sure if I was going to stay or not, because I was like, I hope they're not trying to convert me to Christianity. Because sometimes interfaith isn't truly interfaith. Right. But it was. I really enjoyed it. But what I would do is I pulled from the teachings. I didn't say I was in the nation. I didn't mention that to people yet. They knew I was Muslim, obviously, but I was pulling from the teachings consistently. Like one of the things I brought up that now is the truth is truth, no matter who or what it comes from. And I said that. And I realized as time went on, how much people were really holding on to the things that I was saying. And they would talk to me about that. There was someone who, for example, was like, she had such a hard time, like she was trying to figure out where she fit spiritually. And I just pulled from the teachings. I can't remember honestly exactly what I said at the time, but she, like within a couple months, she was following her spiritual path that would help her grow closer to God. And it was things like that was happening consistently. It was just dropping the right word. I wasn't trying to be like nation all the time. You don't have to necessarily be like that all the time. Sometimes sometimes just being who you are, like I was saying earlier, is going to attract people to the teachings. Now to the point that one of my best friends, when I first met her, was also in college, and she was agnostic, or not agnostic, she was atheist, which means someone who doesn't think God is real. She was atheist, and her family super against any organized religion. And I remember inviting her to Quest because I thought that might be a good thing. And she resisted at first. And then she eventually came. And we would build our friendship and conversation to the point that fast forward to now, you know, I shared lectures with her. We had, when the vaccinations came out, like when his minister said not to vaccinate and the final call had that interview, her degree was in biology. We literally watched that interview. Like, we took about 2 or 3 days to watch that interview, beginning to end, like stopping at every point that we had misunderstood and breaking it down and having this deep conversation about that. And so now she's to the point that she's I don't think she's definitely not atheist. She's either agnostic or says she believes in God and hasn't told me yet. And she is like exploring her spirituality. So I say all that to say is, like, for me, accepting my own being myself means being like, I'm comfortable being in spaces where people are not all sharing the same perspective as me, and being able to bring them into the teachings, even if they might not realize it's the teachings, by our dialogue, our conversation, how I act.
Praise be to Allah. And these are universal teachings, right? It's the truth. And so what did you say? You were just you accepted your own and you chose to be yourself. And
Yes,
so that's what makes you magnificent, makes you illustrious, because you're in the reflection of Allah. So praise be to Allah, that you are a great influencer. Praise be to Allah, right?
Praise be to Allah. Absolutely. Absolutely, my sister. But we want to thank you for taking time to come and sit on the set live, the 99 and 1 Ep.7. You did that, my sister. So praise be to Allah. Thank you so much. You know, brothers and sisters, what I love about, these 7 days is brothers and sisters are truly taking their time to go into the attributes and create the relationship with these attributes, and that is just so beautiful, because you can just imagine one question we have to ask: what are you finding out about yourself through these attributes, right? And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it up, because as the Honorable Minister Farrakhan said, and we quoted Sister Qadira, they asked the question, why is there trouble figuring out exactly what duty to God is? So what's the relationship between duty to God and his attributes?
We have to study.
We have to study these attributes and then put the attributes, as the minister said, find excellence in these attributes, degrees of excellence in these attributes. So when that question was asked of him, that duty is found in studying his attributes. Once you know these attributes, you will see that he is sufficient for all that we need. So brothers and sisters, share with somebody the 99 and 1 season 2. Follow us, brothers and sisters, because that is our objective. It is truly to put these attributes, out there so we can all learn more about ourselves. And in learning more about ourselves, we're learning our duty.
That's right.
We're learning duty to God.
That's right.
We're learning that duty to God. So praise be to Allah, my dear sister.
Yes. And Master Father Muhammad, he came to seek and to save. And he came so that we, right, may reflect him. And as you heard, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about Master Father Muhammad manifesting these attributes. And so when we study and we keep our duty, then we have the ability to manifest these attributes as well.
And that's the beautiful thing, because Honorable Minister Farrakhan said that Master Father Muhammad's purpose of coming was to
make us into himself.
Make us into himself. So what's the relationship between that and the attributes? So, he's manifesting 99 and plus a few more.
That's right.
Right? That's according to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said to us. Right? So praise be to Allah.
Praise be. All right.
So I know, right? So brothers and sisters, we at the end. Sister dear, go right ahead, please.
All right. So there we go. So we want you to pre-order your book now, Ramadan Mubarak, Fasting in Islam, the month of Ramadan and Beyond, a learner's guide by our student national imam of the Nation of Islam, Brother Rahman Sultan Muhammad. No,
I'm
Sultan.
about to say,
Rahman.
I know it's Ramadan. I mean, because you saw it here in Ramadan, you're gonna put Rahman first. Boy, there you go.
Get my brother's name. Brother, Imam Sultan Rahman Muhammad.
Yes.
All right. So, and
Oh, that's triple dub.
Islamic Sciences
Dot
org.
NOI.org. Praise be to Allah.
All right, and you can get the 2023 Ramadan Quranic Reading Journal and NOI History Digest. So Brother Dimitri, Muhammad, he comes out with one of these every Ramadan.
Yes.
So if we want you to get this one, and then we want you to get the previous years as well, and you can get it at researchminister.com. And tune in tomorrow for day what?
Day 8. Almost 4, 4, 5, 3. I don't know. We can do 6, 2.
No, we can't do that. So where we'll have our dear beloved brother, Imam Qasim Amin Nathari. He's the founder of I Am Islam and American Movement. That is tomorrow, same time, same place at 5 p.m. You can watch it live at Mosque 45 on Facebook, or you'll see the meeting ID and the passcode. And again, watch us live, Mosque number 45 on Facebook every day for the month of Ramadan. You can subscribe and tune in to the 9901 TMBN, the most beautiful names on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. And you can also get the replays on our YouTube channel. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. And thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining us. And inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak.